Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for coming and joining us for another episode of From the Ground Up. Real time issues with real time solutions for MWBEs, brought to you by Queen Strategy Partners, Nicole Valentine Esquire, Danielle Douglas, and myself, Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant. We're so excited that the first and the third Tuesday of the month, we are here with information that you could utilize right now in order to move you forward with the success that we need you to have as a small business or MWBE. We've been with you for a full season. This is season 2. We've survived the first iteration of the crazy world we're in, right? This post COVID nightmare, but we've turned lemons into lemonade. We have been able to give you some real value and content and also give you information from people on the ground, making it happen each and every week. So, this is not a different day. I'm still joined by the most incredible co host, the amazing, the talented, the wonderful Danielle Douglas, who has some greetings for you this morning. So, yeah, Al, we give a round of applause, but I want to welcome you all and turn it over to my co host, Danielle Douglas.
So I just want to say good morning on behalf of Queen Strategy Partners, specifically myself and Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant. As I always say, I love doing this show with my wonderful co-host, Miss Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant. And let you know, I'm the only one who calls her Miss Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant because she's that bomb, did it to me. So I even made up a new phrase, folks, for Miss Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant. But with that said, I am excited to have one of our District 27 Council candidates with us today. We hope that we will be joined by some of the other candidates as well. But nevertheless, we have a great person with us this morning. He's going to share his ideas for District 27. He's going to tell us why he believes he's the best candidate. You know, Dr. Stacey and myself, we thought this was really important that we bring these candidates on to our show and utilize this platform to not only share information about specifically business principles and practices, but also to give these candidates an opportunity to let us know how they intend to benefit the small business owners of the community, because we know now more than ever we need help, right? Post COVID. And so it's very important that we hear their ideas so that we feel we can make educated decisions on who will be the best candidate to serve us collectively as a community and specifically as business owners. So with that said, without further ado, we are going to allow Al Canoe to introduce himself, and we'll start, asking you some questions from there, Al.
Great. Thank you, ladies. I am honored to be here with you both and those people who are watching. Thank you for this opportunity. This is definitely a needed conversation to have, especially for our small businesses in Southeast Queens and around our city. I'm grateful for this opportunity. So, who am I? My full name is Al Hassan Kanu. People normally just call me Al. But I was born in Sierra Leone, and I'm a father, and I'm an immigrant, a public servant, and a resident for Southeast Queens, right here in Southeast Queens. I'm running for city council because I know it would be the best interest for our community based on what we currently have in our community. I served in the city council for 15 years. I worked under the leadership of then council member Leo Kamwe for 10 and 5 years under council member Danik Miller. I also worked for several months, about 5 months, for public advocate Jemani Williams. I understand how city council works. I've been there. I know that relationship, partnership is what actually drive the conversation to be able to bring resources to your community. I understand where we are now at this junction of the COVID situation and what's going on and what is needed for the next council member to be able to to improve the lives of residents, public safety, and other issues, especially small businesses as well. So the next council member have a major responsibility, but it takes someone with experience and the know-how of how city council works and able to build relationship to bring those resources to Southeast Queens. Because of my knowledge of city council and my knowledge of budget and able to work with people. That's why I believe I'm the best candidate to go to City Hall at this time to help bring those resources in our community. And that's why I'm wanting to be the next council member for 27 Council District. And I'm very honored and proud that the incumbent council member, Idenique Miller, looked at me and said, Al, after the years that we've worked together, I know you can do the job, and gave me his endorsement. And Senator Kamwe, who I worked with for 10 years, also said the same thing and gave me his endorsement because they understand what's at stake and how we can get it and who they believe can get it done. And I received both men endorsement, and I'm proud of that. But now I'm here to get your endorsement, the public, and of course you two ladies. And remember, it's ranked choice voting. If I'm not your number one, you can make me your number two, and I'll accept that as well. But what Southeast Queens now is one Southeast Queens needs now is one solid candidate that can bring home, as I always say, the turkey bacon because I'm Muslim. The turkey bacon, right? Because we are desperate right now. There's so many issues that we need to address. And I am ready and I'm qualified and able to bring that right here in our community. And I look forward to working with the community and making sure that we work as a team to address what is needed in our community. And that's why I'm running for city council.
Awesome. Well, we are excited that you are here to share that. And you gave us clearly why you are, running for this seat. What would you say are the most important issues in District 27? And how do you plan to address them?
Okay. See, the thing is, if you go to different part of the community, the 27th council district is Hollis, Cambridge Heights, Queens Village, Springfield Gardens, Jamaica, and St. Albans. Different part of the district is asking for different needs. There are areas that has not been addressed for a long time. If you go to like the Jamaica area on West Jamaica on what do you call it, Liberty Avenue, that's entire area by Liberty Park, right? There are dilapidated properties over there. There's drugs, there's sanitation concern, and there's so many issues that they're facing over there that has not been addressed for many years. And it seems like they've been ignored, or there hasn't been enough resources to actually get to that part of town. So they will ask you for what can you do for us to help us improve our community, right? If you go to other areas in the Hollis area, over Jamaica Avenue, 183rd. Those people have one home, one family homes, and they're constantly having flooding issue. They want you to address their flooding issue because for so many years, the sewer line that they have is not able to carry the load of housing in that area. So they don't want you to bring certain things. They literally want you to bring resources to address the flooding issue. If you come right here to Queens Village, they'll talk about public safety. They talk about drive speeding. They talk about other issues that relate to their public safety. So it's Cambridge Heights. They're looking at areas. How do you beautify the businesses on Cambridge Heights? How do you make sure the storefronts that are empty? How do you bring business in there and give hope to those small businesses? So different areas have different needs. But what I want to do is bring all those people together collectively so we can sit down and decide how we're going to build together. I don't want to be a council member and say, let's do this, let's do this. I want to be one to say, let's come together. This is the money we have. Where can we tackle first? What can we address right now to make sure we uplift each and every one of us? Because when one area is built up, our entire community is built up. So we have to look at it as building one area doesn't mean we're ignoring another, but let's do it together and make sure we're able to reach each area simultaneously.
Thank you, Al. And our next question is, please share your vision for the small business community post-COVID-19.
Ms. Douglas, one of the problems we have, even with businesses, right? One thing I want to work on is when I get to City Hall, I have to make sure that I have to work with my colleagues to put a bill in place to prevent like doctors and so, because I see a lot of doctors use housing to do their business. We have to make sure businesses are using store fund. We have to fill in back our store fund so we can get revenue from property tax and so. And when we take those business that are using residential for businesses, those residents, those properties become properties to house homelessness. Those properties becomes properties that you and I are looking for to be first time home buyers. So we have to make sure that businesses have places to do their business, but we have to work with our state elected officials to make sure, and our city mayor, to make sure that we have some kind of incentives for small business that have lost so much during COVID. We have to look at property taxes, and property taxes is way too high, as you can see now, and the penalties is at 18% when you don't pay on time. And I know the city council actually just during COVID they reduced that to 10. But I'm asking, I spoke to a couple of elected officials, I spoke to the councilman about it and asked that why don't we reduce it to zero right now? There's no reason why businesses are suffering and you still charging them 10% of late fee when they can't even pay what they currently owe. And these businesses are suffering. We got to have incentives for our business. We got to give them some kind of benefit, whether it's their light bill, electric bill, and so forth. We need to work with city agencies to have those incentives ready, but the state elected officials have to make sure that the funding that comes from the federal government reaches our small businesses. Unfortunately, what happened with the last funding, many of our small businesses that I actually sat with to help fill out the application process were not granted any fund. Some of our small businesses have one staff to actually do the entire business, right? When you give them an application of 60, 80 pages to fill out, they don't know how to do those stuff, unfortunately. We have a responsibility to teach them those things. We have a responsibility to make it easy for them, especially at this time when they're losing businesses, they're losing family members, and that has not been done. And we got to make sure when the funding hits the city this time, our small businesses are number one on that list to receive those funding. And if we don't do that, we're failing our community. So what I'm going to do as the next council member is bring those small businesses at the table. So let's discuss what's available and how to get it. Reduce the amount of paperwork that they have to do. All that is politics. Let's stop playing. This big corporation that are getting millions and billions of dollars from our taxpayer money that we're paying, they're not filling all those papers. And if they are filling it out, fine. We don't have time to fill those paperwork. Reduce the paperwork that you're giving us and give us the money. And we're not asking for loan anymore. We're asking for grant. And we have to be very, very unapologetic when we make these demands. And I will be strong with my colleagues to make sure that happens. Our community is with talent and enterprise entrepreneurial spirit. Unfortunately, as you have said, and everyone know here right now, COVID relief funds were distributed inequitably. I am going to make sure we change that. And that's the number one thing we got to do for our small businesses. There's money coming, give it to the small businesses. There are folks that I know that are filling out fund grants and paperwork to get funding that don't even have businesses. We have to make sure that the money goes to the right people. And we have to look at that very good by bringing people like you guys that understand the market and know what's going on, bring it to the table to have this discussion happen.
I appreciate that response. Thank you so much, Al. We are small business owners here in Queens. So, yeah, where's the money? Bring
Yes.
us the money. So, we
Cha-ching,
appreciate
cha-ching.
Yes.
exactly. And I think we have another candidate that is has a representative ready to join. So we just need them to give us a notation that they can turn on their camera. But before we get to anyone else who's here, let's build on what you said with getting money to the businesses. And you shared your vision for really creating some financial resources and making that available and not having paperwork as a barrier to opportunity. But what about the wider breadth of businesses in our community? What would you say are some of the ways in which we could stretch that? Outdoor dining, different types of cuisines, coffee shops. I mean, a lot of people go to Long Island for certain things, they go over to Brooklyn for other things, they go into the city. But we know the richness in this district 27. What ideas do you have about stretching out that breadth of business opportunity here in our community?
Thank you. There's a young man that I've been talking with and having a lot of conversation with, in regards to creating some kind of a business improvement district, right? Like the Softon Bead, and that we have places like Cambridge Hyde, Queens Village. They don't have that, right? We have to make sure we create something like that. We have to talk to our corridors, our business corridors, those small businesses, to be able to create a bid for them so they can advocate on behalf of them as a group, as a team. So if we can create that, that will help us um, greatly in addressing those needs. But also, we have to make sure that we reach out to colleagues and business owners outside of this community and show them what we have. But when you talk about businesses, one of the essential aspect that affect us a lot about improving our small businesses is the fact that we're a transportation desert, right? People can't come to us for business, and people can't go out to get so, and that's affecting us a lot. The fact that our community, it takes you hours, over 45, it takes me 45 minutes or an hour from where I'm at just to go downtown Jamaica, right? Just for with public transportation. And then if I even have my personal car, I got to look for parking. And when I find parking, I got to pay for a meter. By the time I get to the business, my meter ran out, and I'm getting a ticket. So it makes people want to drive away. So we are not encouraging businesses, I mean, people to actually support our businesses. So it makes business go other places because they're not getting the support they need. So we have to address this holistically. How do we make sure that parking meter, because some areas in our community, parking meters like downtown Jamaica, it's an hour parking. We have to increase that hour or take some of those parking meter out, because you're not encourage people to come. But at the same time, parking becomes a major aspect. When you go to downtown Jamaica, you can't park. And if you say, okay, fine, I'm not going to drive, I'm going to just use the bus, good luck, because the bus are not running. And now if you use the regular van that are all over the place, they're illegal. You might end up in an accident and other issues that are happening. So how do we make sure that we have the sensible transportation in our community, making sure that buses are running on time, there are buses, enough buses, and other transportation and needs are being addressed, so we can actually elevate the businesses. It goes back to City Hall. City Hall and the mayor have to put money into our transportation aspect in Southeast Queens. That is not happening. A lot of money instead is being given to other areas, like $10 each passenger is being subsidized for the ferry that costs to Staten Island. $10 for each passenger from the city, our taxpayer money. And what we all we get here is dollar vans, right? It's not even a dollar no more, it's $2 vans. So so we got to address that aspect. When we talk about small businesses, there's a lot that got to do with it. There's a lot that got to do with it. And it goes to us supporting, but how do you support when you can get there? So if we can help with that aspect and making sure that those small businesses have a bid that they can work with, each one of them from Farmers Boulevard, the business from Farmers going to Queens Village and Linden all the way down to Cambridge by the Cross Island, create a bid for those folks. Create a bid for the businesses on Hampstead, on Springfield. Create a bid for the businesses on Merritt, so they can address their need as what they can address the need with the elected official rather than doing it individually. That's what's happened. And if we can do that and able to bring businesses to our community, we can do a lot. When I work with Danique Miller, we are able to bring businesses downtown Jamaica. If you look at downtown Jamaica, you saw that changing drastically. There's a lot of businesses coming, including Macy's and other food chains. They're all coming to downtown Jamaica. How do we expand that to other areas? They're coming to downtown Jamaica because of the train. But now we got to expand that. Like I mentioned to Ms. Douglas earlier, I was talking about Robert Kennedy when he said, some men see things as they are and say, why? He said, I dream of things that never were, and I say, why not? The E train and the F train stop at certain places, right? And people say, oh, that's why, that's all they can do. You don't think the E train can be extended someplace that we don't have it to south side of Jamaica? People are like, that's not possible. Yes, it is. We got to talk about these things. If the train can go all the way to Southside Jamaica, believe me, we can change our economic in Southeast Queens. If there's transportation to go from Jamaica to downtown Jamaica, the way that is happening in other part of New York and of the city or north side of Queens, Astoria, and all these other areas, the way they have all this transportation helping them. If we can have that in Southside Jamaica, our businesses will bloom, and that's what we need to fight for. And that's what I'm going to fight for.
Well, I'm sorry, Stacey. I was just going to build on what Al just spoke about because, yes, transportation is critically important. But how do you envision building a ecosystem where the residents are supporting the businesses and the businesses are supporting the residents? So, although it is critically important that we have outside folks come in to support the businesses, is just as important that we build the ecosystem. And that's very hard to do if there are not sufficient types of businesses like Dr. Stacy noted, maybe coffee shops, different types of cuisines that the residents can support, these important corridors within the communities, maybe Linden, Merrick. So how do you envision building that local ecosystem between the residents and the businesses?
It starts with each and every one of us. We have to foresee that. We as residents have to understand, like during this campaign and even prior to that, I don't eat outside of Southeast Queens. I don't go other places to eat. I don't shop other places. If I shop other places, it's maybe because I'm shopping online and I'm looking for something specific that we don't have or haven't seen. And it starts with us. We have to make sure each office, and not just city council, I'm talking about every elected office, our clergy, our clergy department section, our small businesses, our community organization. We have to promote our businesses ourselves. No one else is going to do that for us. We have to make sure we open take for instance our schools. Where are those food coming from? The food for our schools, where are they coming from? The kids are eating every day at school. There's food. There's millions of dollars being spent for lunches, breakfast, and all of this for school. Who's catering for that? It's not us. It's not us. We have to look at that, making sure that we are the one catering for the food that our kids are taking in our schools. So these are some of the things we have. There's so much we have to look at, but it starts with us wanting that change. If we cannot be strong in demanding it from our elected official, then we are failing ourselves. If you go to, my daughter came to me the other day and said, "Daddy, the pizza that in our school is disgusting, but I got to eat it because the food is disgusting." The staff in the school, I spoke to a staff, and when I worked at the Southern Queens Park Association, and we have a summer camp, the amount of food that we have to trash every day for summer camp because the kids don't eat it, but that food comes constantly, every day. It's simple, every day. Peanut butter and jelly, ham sandwich, cheese, the same crap every day. The kids do not eat it. A box of milk, same thing. Why don't we have the parents and the kids tell us what they want to eat? Let's have them make a list of the food that they want. And let's find an organization. Let's find so many restaurants in our district that we can actually employ to cater to our kids' needs. Give them those contracts. Let them provide food for our communities. It starts with us. And if we could do that, believe me, there's so much we can change in our community. There are other things that I would want to talk about, but I'm a little skeptical about talking about it because I don't want to give up all my jewels. But I promise you guys, we are all going to sit down and I will give you my ideas of some of the things I believe will work. And I'm not going to put them out there and say, this is what it has to be. I want you to think about it. And I want you to be able to say, why not? Not just it's impossible, but why can't we make it possible? How many schools do we have in our district? High school, middle school, pre-K, and daycares. All of these schools that the city is funding. Some of the teachers in those schools are not from our community. They're coming from other communities. Why don't we have teachers and those staff from our communities? Why are we not looking into that? Those are some of the things we have to look at to help build our economy, to help build our schools, to help build our future. And those are the things I'm going to be talking about and working on.
So, Al, I want to push a pin in that because that's a lot to unpack. You're really talking about getting into DOE's business, right? And looking at how the school food system is running. Can we really get small businesses involved? That's very interesting. I want to push a pin in that. But I do want to let our additional candidate, and we might have two more joining us. We did our best to invite everybody in the district. That's the good news when Danielle and I live in the district, work in the district. We know all of you, and people look at it as like, oh my gosh, there's so many people running. I look at it as look at all the brilliance that resides in Southeast Queens. So no matter who takes the seat, I hope that all the candidates continue to offer their brilliance to us in our community. It's going to take every hand on deck to make sure that we survive what we've witnessed in 2020 and now 2021. So we're going to give Mr. Clark an opportunity to get caught up on where we are in our questioning. So the first question is for you to introduce yourself. Let us know what you believe are the most important issues in District 27 and how you plan to address them. And then your vision for businesses post COVID-19. I know that's a lot, but Al is out. And so you're going to have to play a little bit of catch up. Just
Totally.
give us those responses. So welcome to the show and thank you for being here.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Dr. Grant, and thank you, Danielle Douglas, and my good man Al, man. The funny thing is, the one thing that folks don't tell you about during this process and while you're campaigning is actually like some of the friendships that you get to develop. And Al and I guess know each other a little bit, but not too much. And I'm actually just a big fan of a lot of stuff that Al's been able to do. And like to your point, I think that there's a lot that we can be able to do for our community, and we're seeing exactly the different areas that there are ways that we can be able to help. At a time that's so important here. So I guess to your point, my name is Jason Clark, and like Al, I am a candidate for city council here in District 27. So for me, I know there are a couple of questions you had there, so let's see which ones.
I'll repeat. I'll just to be fair to you to let you know. So, what do you think are the most important issues in District 27, and how do you plan to address them? And then I'll give you the second one after that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So for me, at the end of the day, it's always going to come down to education as the number one thing. Education has always been an important thing. And, I feel like, especially in our community, there's a lot more that I think that we can be doing. Even just thinking a little bit about my story, when I was a kid, my parents were concerned that I was starting to fall behind when I was in school. So my mother had me take an exam to get into a public school program with the magnet program. But they didn't want to let me in because I was Black. So my mother, she reached out to the council member at the time, who was Archie Spigner. She reached out to the borough president. She reached out to anyone who would listen until finally she was able to get the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund to bring a lawsuit on my behalf. And it's only because of that that myself and 5 other students of color were accepted into this program. But it put me on a track so I could be able to get into a good high school and college and be able to achieve my first dream of becoming a civil rights attorney. But I know that all of that wouldn't have happened, if, I wasn't able to get that educational groundwork. And when I look at a lot of the challenges that we've been seeing in our community, and given how much that we can do, and the fact that we're going to be getting or that we are getting $8.2 billion for New York City education right here. Like, I really look at this as a watershed moment. And I guess to that second point, the other thing I'd also say is important is housing. The last time we had a recession back in 2008, Southeast Queens got hit harder than anywhere else in the city, anywhere else in the state, anywhere else in the entire country. And a lot of that had to do with, which kind of, I think, goes into some of these larger business concepts here, is that a lot of folks weren't able to get loans from traditional financial institutions, and it made them susceptible to predatory lenders. And I think that today, with the current recession, plus the pandemic, plus the 500,000 plus jobs we've lost since COVID started, that, I just want to make sure that, folks who live in our community, can be able to stay in our community. There's probably more, but that's probably a good time to stop. The next question.
Yes, yes, and appreciate that. As a mother, there is nothing that we will not do for our children to make sure that they get access. So thank you for sharing that. And the next question was your vision for businesses post COVID-19.
Yeah, and that's such an important question. I mean, just here in our city, like 50% of jobs, come from our small businesses. And when I think about what it is that we need to do and how that we can effectively recover from COVID, we need to make sure that our small businesses, in particular, are in positions. I remember at the very beginning of the campaign. I think it was a few months ago. I started walking up and down Farmers Boulevard because I had heard about the Queensboro President's Office. They had a grant where they're giving up to $20,000 to small businesses right here in Southeast Queens. But as I knocked on all of the storefronts over there, there wasn't a single business that was aware of those resources that were available. And to me, this goes to this point that, yes, we got to make sure that we, for every single dollar that we are entitled to, whether it's on the city level, whether it's on the state level, it's on the federal level. But we also have to figure out ways to make sure that we're getting more access to resources that are available right now. So like one of the things I would love for us to be able to see with our small businesses is to see if we could partner with the New York City Small Businesses Services Department and have them go up and down our commercial corridors, just kind of giving just, like a 10-minute, thing, like, hey, here are some of the opportunities that are available, have like a small conversation, say that, based on the conversation we're having, it sounds like, these may be things that you qualify for. Why don't you come into our office, like whatever date, bring these papers, and then we'll get an application in now. Like I feel like we have to be a little bit more proactive about getting the resources that are available there. The second part, and this kind of goes to that point when we're talking about, what happened in the past, the last time we had a recession. I would love for us to be able to get a federal credit union started here in Southeast Queens. There's some work that had got started the last time we had a recession in this area. But my thinking has been that if we can have a federally chartered credit union here, it'd be easier to be able to get some of those bridge loans for some of our small businesses themselves in some of these challenging periods. And there's just so much I think that we could do, because I've always felt that, let's make sure we get every resource we're entitled to. But at the end of the day, the answer to all the issues and all the questions that we're dealing with is us, right? So how do we put together the infrastructures to make sure that you and I are in a position to be able to do that? And that certainly goes for small businesses.
Thank you so much for your great answers. And Jason, also in regards to business, what is your vision for bringing a wider breadth of businesses to the community? That that could be outside seating for the existing dining establishments, or a wider array of cuisines or coffee shops. Because we are, as a community, lacking a lot of the essential type of businesses, and we see abundance of the same type of businesses on the major corridors of Southeast Queens.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Like, even to that point, one of the things I've talked to folks is like, wouldn't it be great if there was just like a bakery, like it's just right here, like where we are, like on Linden Boulevard, or like some of these things that you see maybe in other, some of the other communities. I think that what we have to do is figure out, what are the areas of need, right? Like I'd love to be able to see that we have more like fresh produce out here. I'd love to be able to see that we could have maybe some more, sit down, like, restaurants in our community, and making sure that, I think the answer to that is making sure that, we're putting together these entrepreneurial hubs, because it's not as if I would be shocked if there aren't folks right now, like in our district, who don't have ideas, who don't want to be able to bring those things. But how do we make sure that they have opportunities to be able to take classes and workshops, so they can be able to develop the vision, be able to develop a business plan, and then be in a position to succeed? Because I'm surely I don't have to tell you guys that a lot of our restaurants, they fail very early in the process. But if we can make sure, just like going to school, if we can make sure that folks have that education and they have that foundation so that they're in a position to succeed, and that we figure out ways to be able to help with publicizing and giving them visibility, especially at the very beginning. Like our Nora community is going to come around, and we're going to make sure that we invest them because we know how important. But I guess in the shorter answer to that too, is also just more funding, right? We got to fund these programs. You got to fund things that allow folks to be able to do well. I think that's one of the great unique things about the city council position, where you have opportunity when it comes to discretionary funding. I like to figure out ways that we could be able to develop public-private partnerships with, certainly working with our Chamber of Commerce as well as some other organizations that, incubate, minority-owned businesses in particular, so that way, we have a nice foundation and that they can be able to succeed on positions to be able to succeed.
Awesome. Well, thank you for getting caught up on those responses for us. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I love what I'm hearing from all of the candidates. And Danielle and I will be holding everyone accountable for those ideas, whether or not you're in office, because that means that if you've chosen to be a public servant, you want to continue to contribute to the betterment of community. So, Al, we're going to come over to you now. You started building out some really great ideas on some of the ways in which we could use even the educational system and food for our children when we talk about building this ecosystem here. But let's talk about what your vision is for really making it robust, right? Looking at how you intend to have resident support businesses. You brought that up before. Like, how are we supporting? You say you don't eat outside of the district. Go, Al. Like, that you support all the restaurants here. So what kind of model that you might have that you want to share? I know that all of you aren't going to share all of your jewels before the election is over, but what piece of that can you share with an idea around how do we really make that a process that business to business and those residents are actually supporting the businesses that are here? Because both of you have spoken to economics and what that really requires. But what does that look like? If you were to explain that to a young high school student like mine who's graduating, or one in the early 20s, why should we stay here? How would you create that model of recycling dollars right here in District 27 versus going to Brooklyn, to Valley Stream, or to Manhattan?
Okay. See, one thing was, let's take, for instance, when last administration, when I was with Nick Miller, we started a program called the Participatory Budget, right? That was where we took $1 million from the council budget, the city, our budget, and have young people from the age of 14 up to vote with what they want to do with this money. So that's getting young folks involved in the process. But when it comes to our small businesses, our houses, property tax, and so many of these other things that affect our life, our livelihood, and so much in our community, the number one issue that I have with Dr. Grant and Ms. Douglas is that the mayor power, the power of the mayor prohibit so many great things we can do in our city and in our community. So one thing I want to do first, when I become the next council member, with Jason's support, is to work with my state elected official, including Senator Comrie and so many other folks out there, to make sure we address our city charter. Currently, what happened is the mayor appoints you on a Thursday, and you go to work on a Monday. There's no major vetting process of any of these commissioners that takes on this office, whether it's small business, whether it's Parks Commission, whether it's Education Commissioner, and Police Commissioner, right? There's no vetting process within the city council to actually vet them, beside a committee on that department to just ask them a few questions. We have to create a vetting process just like it is in the federal government. So what I would like to do at City Hall is to create that vetting process. So make sure we have hands-on and able to hold these folks accountable. Because I can say all these great things, but if the mayor continuously appointing commissioners, it's going to be difficult for me to actually execute this plan that I have or the plan that Jason has. But if we can vet these appointees, which I would love to chair that committee in City Hall, and making sure that I'm holding them accountable to Southeast Queens, then we can decide creating a committee. Go back to the board of election, right? Creating a parents, teachers, and committee that actually decide what kind of the teaching, the curriculum, what's happening in our school, creating that body again, like we used to have back in the days, creating that. Now it's not happening because the mayor and the chancellor decide what happens in our school. We have to take that power back and make sure we give that power to our community, the parents. I'm a parent. I've been to PTA meeting for my daughter, and I don't. All the ideas I've said at those schools, I didn't see none of those ideas came to life because the ideas that they use it is what the mayor tells them. So we have to change that first. If we can change that aspect of the mayor appointees, there's so much we can change going forward. But we have to involve this participatory budget. We have to increase that money from $1 million to possibly $2 or $3 million that affect other areas. We also got to make sure participatory budget goes back to our small businesses, beautification of the storefronts. There has to be funding where we have a uniform storefront, more lighting in our storefront, and able to have incentives that small businesses in our storefronts can leave their lights on 24/7. So those storefronts are bright and it looks beautiful. But those incentives have to be accepted by our city council that these city agencies are giving these storefronts. So you don't have all these bills laid back and you end up losing your business. One of the great things I like about this, about the candidates that are running for city council, it have extended or it expand my view that so many people care, right? So many young folks that were not here, they hear and they care. And I say this, whether like you just said, Dr. Grant, whether I'm the council member or not, I have a responsibility to this community. So it's everyone that's running, right? And I have to work with whoever wins to make sure that what I'm talking about is fruitful to our community. And if any one of us that's running do not have that mindset, we fail in our community. So if Jesse wins, I'm going to reach out to Jesse and say, Jesse, these are my ideas. Let's sit down and see how we can come up with great platform and how we can execute these ideas. And I look up to Jesse to do the same thing for me because 12 of us running, that's 12 ideas that's I don't have, right? So if we work together, we can actually improve our community. So having all these young folks and all these people running, I feel great about it. What makes me stand out different from them is the fact that I've been here longer. Some of the things they're talking about doing, I've been doing. I'm looking forward to expand on it. When we talk about housing, we create the buyback program where we bought mortgages from the federal government, repair these houses and sell it back to the community. So folks are talking about foreclosure and stuff like that. We've put programs in place to address that way before these folks come to Southeast Queens, way before these folks say they running for office, way before I thought about running for office, and I've been doing this work. Now, people are talking about doing this work. We've been doing this, and we want to continue. And I look forward to working with all 11 of them to make sure that I continue serving in City Hall. And if they win, I look forward to 11 of us supporting whoever wins to do those work. But it's going to take a lot of experience. It's going to take a lot of relationship building. It's going to take community partnership, small business partnership to make sure everything I'm trying to do or we're trying to do in Southeast Queens get done. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to open the door to each and every member of Southeast Queens 27 Council District to work together to address these needs and these concerns.
Thank you, Al. And same question for you, Jason. What is your vision when you think about creating this ecosystem and really being able to have businesses be supported and residents supporting these businesses and really having this robust community and vision for District 27?
Yeah, I think the answer at the time is, oh, sorry, 1 second, alarm's going.
No worries. The life of being on the campaign trail.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that. Okay, yes. So I think the answer is making sure that we're being pretty intentional about the plans that we have for the folks and being able to make sure that we're recovering effectively from COVID in particular. I think the first step is learning the lessons that we learned from this pandemic, right? So I want to make sure that there's more business interruption insurance for our especially our storefronts. You know, one of the challenges, there are so many businesses that had to shut their doors, understandably so, pandemic. But as soon as they started to try to, get back up and rolling, they were saddled with all these debt from months and months in the past, right? And they were closed because, the government said that they had to do. So one of the things I'd want us to do is make sure that we have a more robust infrastructure in place so that if you can't have your storefronts open, that you aren't entitled or required to be able to pay back all of this. Second, I'd like to be able to see if we can be able to partner, whether it's with our small business services department or giving folks access to legal assistance with folks who are small business attorneys, so that they can be able to reduce some of the debt that they may have incurred over this last year, so that they can be able to get up and running. So that's the first thing. The second is, I think we also have to think about what it is we do with our planning to ensure that folks are in a position to do well. So what can we do to make sure that folks also have a digital storefront, as opposed to just having a brick and mortar location? I want to make sure that we have more classes and workshops available so that folks who want to have a robust online presence can be able to do so. And the great thing about that is all that does is just complement the work that you're already doing today. But, a lot of these things, you need this type of assistance. Not just saying that we have a program is enough. We have to be, again, proactive about, knocking on and reaching out to folks and making sure that they're actually getting the usage of these resources that are out there. The third thing I would also look like is we have to look at what's in the future, right? Especially some of these, great entrepreneurs out there. I mean, there are so many young folks in our communities who have these terrific ideas, especially when it comes to, being able to create apps or being able to do things online, things that I have no concept of. I'll be the first one to tell you right now. But what we need to do is allow them to be able to get to these points, right? So how do we make sure that they're getting the infrastructure to learn about computer science? How do we make sure that they're learning about, the basics when it comes to math and science, so that they can learn how to code and be able to do this type of work? There's a program that I had started a few years ago called Dream Chasers, where we provide free tutoring and mentoring to kids in our community. We collaborate with the Queen SUNY Education Opportunity Center, to be able to do this. And one of the things that we've been trying to incorporate into our program is on Thursdays having these opportunities where folks will be able to learn and get in some type of experience when it comes to learning how to code and learning computer science as well. And this is something that, whether we want to see it or not, is coming, and I want to make sure that, especially as there are more of these transitions as to what the future looks like for our small businesses, that we are prepared, for this type of thing. So, again, those are the areas I look. And I guess the one last thing I would say is that, I guess I'm a civil rights attorney. I worked at the Attorney General's office for 9 years, and I also served as president of the Metropolitan Black Bar Association, which is the largest association of Black attorneys here in New York. And one of the things that we did during my tenure is making sure that we are, intentional about making sure that the solo practices and the medium practices of law, have these infrastructures in place. So, again, I think there are a lot of good ideas out there. And then the last thing I'll say, I think I've said this 5 times already, is that, we just got to make sure that we're doing more when it comes to grants. And that's what I was thinking about with the MWBA. We need to ensure that we are identifying opportunities for folks in our community to be able to apply for them. There are so many small businesses out here who are doing God's work, doing community-based work. And how do we make sure that they are able to get access to some of those? So those are a few of the things out there that I think that, we could really be sure that, we're moving in the right direction here in South.
Thank you, Jason. Oh, you were going to say something now.
Sorry, Dr. Grant, if I could say this. I sometimes I shake my head and I smile when I hear people talk about what COVID had showed us, right? Oh, during COVID, we see, our eyes are open. And I look at folks and were you blind? Because the normal that we talked about, we were normal. We were not normal. A lot of things that COVID brought out, it's not for us to see because we've seen these things. COVID didn't tell me we didn't have a hospital in Southeast Queens. COVID didn't tell me that folks were struggling for food. COVID didn't tell me that we were struggling in our community of resources. COVID didn't tell me that because it was there. COVID told those folks that we were telling that we were lacking these things, that, hey, they were right. They are lacking these things. When we have cameras on the police department, these videos that we're seeing of black men being shot down and being killed and everywhere in the country, it's not new to us. The cameras didn't show it to us. We knew because we were going to these funerals. The people that saw it, that never knew, they found out. That don't look like you and I. Those are the people who saw what happened, what will happen backstage without cameras. These were the people who were ignoring what we were crying out loud for, the services we need, what we're lacking in our community. These folks are seeing this now. Southeast Queen is struggling. I didn't find out just last year with COVID. People losing their home, businesses losing their properties, businesses losing stuff on the fact that the beautification is a major disaster, or the fact that we lack healthy food in our community. COVID didn't show me that. It was happening. We all knew that. We see that. Folks that ignore it are seeing it now. And what we're going to do is to pressure them to make sure that they answer this call now. And we cannot be apologetic to this. We have to go with force. This time we can't sit back and say, oh, we're waiting for our elected official. This is what I tell folks. Do not wait for your elected official that you vote for. We have to be proactive. Community folks have to stand up with or without elected officials and make this demand. And if elected officials are not standing with you, stand alone. If you by yourself, stand alone. Stand in front of a stuff phone. Make a noise. Make the noise that you believe will answer, what people will answer to. And I promise you, somebody's going to join you. You may have 2 today. Then tomorrow you have 3 more. And later on, and it goes. And those demands, if you stand strong, as our community should, because a lot of communities get what they want because they continuously stand strong together and making these demands. We wait for elected officials to make our demands for us. We have to make the demands ourselves. And do not tell me COVID is what tells you that we have problems. And we have to make sure that we fight together as a community. And in my office as the next council member, I'm going to make sure I stand with this community to make these demands. And I am not going to tell them that COVID opened my eyes. No, COVID opened your eyes. I'm here to ask you now. Give me the money. Give me the money that we need, or we going beyond this. We going to the federal government now. We going to court. And I'm going to use Jason Clark as a lawyer. And we going to court and make this demand. Because it is time that New York, not just New York, it is now time the federal government understand that Southeast Queens is struggling. And if our state and city is denying us what we need, we have to go to the federal government and make it seen. And make them know that we need these services and we're not getting these services as American citizens. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, and actually, maybe if I could just clarify a little bit, I think at least what I was saying is that
I wasn't referring to you, Jason.
No problem, no problem.
Yeah, I wasn't referring to you, Jason.
We're gonna give you
a lot.
Oh, I love this. We're going to give you both some final comments because we are coming to the close of the show. And Danielle has one more question to ask. And then we're going to officially thank you both for being here. And, as we said in our last show, we wish all of the candidates well on this trail. This is important to raise your hand and say, I want to serve my community. I want to add value. And we definitely want to give you both applause for doing that. And thank you. For offering your brilliance to District 27 that has not gone unnoticed. And thank you for coming on the show to share what it is that your vision entails. And I'm going to let Danielle ask the final question as we start winding down, because I see y'all are fired up and ready to go. I hope you have some campaign stops lined up after the show.
I'm following Jason.
Definitely.
So Jason, you got to keep looking back. Right? I have to keep looking back or just run a little faster. So with that said, we do want to give you both the opportunity to give your final remarks on and really share why the community of District 27 should vote for you as their next council member. And as you answer that, Al, what I was going to ask you, if you can incorporate my question into your response, that would be greatly appreciated in the interest of time. I know that you've been, as you said, very connected and involved with what's been going on in District 27. You're connected to, as you said, State Senator Leroy Comrie, Council Member Danique Miller. And what do you intend to do differently? Because some people may perceive you as being part of the establishment. So what does that look like in regards to what you're saying, being a visionary, being creative, and doing things a little different? So you just incorporate that into your response, and we're going to start with Jason.
All right.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you very much for that question, Danielle. And I guess for me, the thing about COVID is that, it exacerbated and it magnified disparities that we've known here for a long time. And it's hard for me not to notice that this year in 2021, which is the centennial of the Tulsa Race Massacre, which related to Black Wall Street, the last time that, we had, a really vibrant and beautiful Black, community out here, that in many ways, this is the closest thing that we have to Black Wall Street, right? And the reason why those businesses and those communities were able to do well is because they were able to invest and then everyone filled a need. Like there is no reason that a dollar, let's say that I spend shouldn't circulate through our community at least 10 times before it leaves our Southeast Queens region, right? But in order to be able to do these things, we have to be thoughtful about the plans that we have out there. We need to make sure that the businesses we have the funding that they need to be able to do well. We need to make sure that we're being forward-looking about what comes in the future for us. And, I guess, to your point about what it is, why someone should at least look at what it is that we're looking to do. I know for me, some of the things I like to think that I bring to the table is I work as a problem solver. I worked at the Attorney General's office for 9 years, bringing lawsuits on behalf of Black and brown folks, especially many of the Black and brown businesses out there that were the victims of fraud. Likewise, I have some leadership skills during my time as president of the Metropolitan Black Bar Association, which is the largest association of Black attorneys here in New York. And I like to think that the community work that we've been able to do here shows that, what we're dealing with now, it doesn't have to be this way. We can see something stronger and better for our future. But what it does mean is that we have to look at things a little differently than we've done it before. We have to be more intentional about how we root out these inequities that we see, whether it's businesses, whether it comes to housing issues, whether it comes to criminal justice issues. These are all things that are within our grasp. And again, especially in a year that is so important for, Black and brown folks, especially Black folks, because of the centennial of Black Wall Street, I feel like this is a beautiful and the best time for us to be able to kind of crescendo and rise up and, really claim, the future that we deserve.
Thank you, Jason. And Al?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Douglas. And of course, thank you very much, Dr. Grant, for allowing us to be here, opening this medium for us to speak about our plan, our platform, and what we need to do and why we are the best candidate, or why I am the best candidate. And I want to thank Jason. Jason and I have built an amazing relationship, and I thank him for that relationship. And I know, I'm not even going to say I hope, I know that relationship is going to continue. And I pray that God grant us a winner that will be fearful of God, but most importantly, able to do God's work and do community work. This job is for a community servant. It's not for a king. It's not someone who thinks they're better than anyone. It's not someone who's scared to sit at the cell phone or the stoop next to an abandoned house or next to a homeless person. That's not what this job is about. This job is for someone who understands a human and have needs, and the responsibility that God has given you is what to address some of those needs. And if you're unable to do so, you should be able to build relationship and able to find another way to address those needs, because people are depending on whoever becomes the next council member. Some of the things I'm going to do different. But first of all, let me say this. When a basketball, an NBA player or NFL player or somebody um, that plays sport is in high school and they're training every day, then they go from high school, they go to college, then from college they end up being in the NBA, they become these great things. People don't call them the establishment. You prepare for it, right? I went to college and studied political science. And after that, I did an internship for a year. I learned through the process. I went through the ropes. Then for a year, I did an internship. Then I worked in the council, understanding how government works. Then now I decided to run for office. So if they call me establishment, I call myself experienced. And I think that's what we need, someone that have the experience to carry on. I'm not the establishment. I'm someone that just have that experience that some folks don't have. That's how I answer the question about my my relationship with the elected official. But what I intend to do different is some of the policy that I've put in place. One of them is definitely, and this hasn't happened. There have been 3 council members that serve this district. The late Archie Speaker, then council member Conway, and Denique Miller. They did a fantastic job in what they were able to do. But I want to expand on that. I want to go beyond that. One, we got to make sure I got to make sure I put a policy to make sure our police commissioner is not just an appointed job no more. It's an elected position or vetted by the city council. Police commissioner have too much power and to not be able to get fired by the people that they're supposed to serve. Believe me, as a council member, the people can fire me. You know what I mean? And that we have to have that for the same thing for the police department. We also have to make sure that the police commanders are elected by our community boards. That's another thing I want to create that's different from what my predecessor have done or his predecessor done. I also want to create that within the police department, just like I did my internship with Camry, the police department recruits have to do internship with non-for-profit organizations, clergy, and programs within our district before they get into actually approved or before they finish their examination and become police officer. They have to do internship within district other than their own to understand how our community moves, our community culture is. I also want to make sure that I create within that office an advisory committee for each program. I want to create an education advisory committee, parks committee, advisory committee, housing committee. This committee are going to be working with the office directly with the community to make sure that it's 24 hours conversation. When I talk about 24 hours, folks are like, man, your office is never going to answer 24 hours. You don't know that. Because I'm somebody, when you call me at 2 o'clock in the morning, I pick up the phone call. Because when your problem knocked at your door, it doesn't tell you, hey, Miss Douglas, problem is coming tomorrow at 4 o'clock. No, it shows up. So if problem can show up anytime, answers should do the same. And that's what my office is going to do. And that's what I did in the city council. And I'm going to continue doing that. And I'm definitely going to work with my colleagues that I'm running with now, including my good friend Jason, because his experience and knowledge for the law is amazing. And I really appreciate some of the work that he has done. But his work that he has done can only expand on what I have to do in City Hall. So I'm definitely going to bring him on board so we can work together and so the other candidates so we can build Southeast Queens. If we are all claiming this is what we want to do, we have to work together to get it done. That's what I'm going to do different. But most importantly, I'm going to open our community to work as a community. We have not worked as a community in a long time. We are still divided, the Black, the Spanish, South Asian, and so forth and so forth. We have to bring everybody together and we have to work as a team. Our message has to be united and strong as a team. That is not happening, and I'm going to make sure we do that as a collective team for the 27th Council District. And I promise you, if we do that, Southeast Queens will be the best community in the entire city, in the entire city of New York. Thank you.
You're not excited at all, Al. You're going to have to bring your excitement up. But we appreciate you. And Jason, thank you so much, Al, for all that you do. Jason is one of our Jack and Jill children as well. So, you're a grown man, but that's what happens when, you're a part of that network. You're always the babies. And
Yes,
we are excited to see all of the candidates, all 12 of you, offer your time once again. We'll give you one last round of applause. and everybody go vote. At the end of the day, ranked choice voting is here. You're able to rank your candidates. This is the first time you can get your number one vote in and say, hey, I really like this candidate, and you can rank them number 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're all figuring out what this ranked choice voting is. We'll see how it works. Some of us have not been happy about it, but it is the law of the land, at least for this election. So be knowledgeable about it, use it wisely, rank the candidates. You have 12, so your top 5 get in on the ballot, and early voting has begun in our district. So utilize the fact that you don't have to wait until primary day to cast your vote. And we thank you again for being here. My beautiful co-host will officially close us out, as this has been great dialogue, and we are praying for success for each and every one offering public service to District 27. Over to you, Danielle.
So I'm going to keep it short and simple. I just want to again say thank you to our District 27 council member candidates. We appreciate you coming on this morning to hear your ideas and your thoughts. And as Dr. Stacey C. Grant and I always say to you, we are here to provide real-time solutions to real-time issues. Please join us, because we are your partners. We not only want to bring you solutions to your business issues, but as you can see, we have a broader vision and really seeing how we can impact our community, literally and figuratively. You're our community as well as our actual community, and we will continue to do that. So join us in 2 weeks at 9 o'clock, and we'll be here. So we expect you to be here as well. But until then, have a great 2 weeks and make it happen and be productive. See you soon.
Thank you, ladies. Appreciate it.